in here. Hello there, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I am sitting down with Susan. Susan is one of our amazing members in Thrivership School. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Always good to get to chat to you. And it was funny before we hit the record button, Susan and I both realized we've both got our cup of tea and we've both got our water. So cheers. Cheers to having a nice conversation today. I know, right? Crazy. We're ready to hydrate. We're ready to go. So, Susan, let's dive right in and tell us a little bit about your breast cancer story.
I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think my story actually starts 25 years ago with my daughter, at least from an emotional standpoint.
If you would like to share that, I think it's a huge part of your story. I do. If whatever you're willing to share, but and I always say when I'm sitting down with our incredible members is share as much as you're called to share, right? So I do believe that that's a big part of your story and a big part of also what we're working on in Thrivership School, right? So
true, very true.
It is. So yeah, absolutely. So if you want to go back 25 years ago, feel free.
Okay. 25 years ago, my 18-year-old daughter was diagnosed with brain cancer. We had her treated in New York City, and after 4 years, 3 surgeries, radiation, and chemo and a stem cell transplant, she passed away at the age of, she had just turned 22. During that time, we had the utmost of care for both our daughter and for the caregivers, my husband and I, from the hospital that we were going to. But she was my only child, so I have to learn how to deal with no children and no grandchildren, which is becoming harder as all of my friends become grandparents. But you know, that's the plate that life sent me. So I'm learning how to accept that. We fast forward to when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was right in the middle of COVID. I detected a lump, went to my PCP who said, yes, definitely, it's a lump. You need to, go for the mammogram. And the results came back and he said, you really need to go forward and talk to a breast surgeon. So I reached out to the cancer center, which is just across the river from where I live and is tied to a university. So it's someplace I had comfort in going to, that had faith that they would do a good job. However, it was COVID, and it was a hospital. So I had to do all of my appointments by myself. My husband was not allowed to join me. It's very hard going to the appointments and being the only set of ears to hear what's being said.
I'm sure. Yeah.
That was really awful. And then after, the first thing that they did was they did the surgery and I had a mastectomy. I went for my follow-up appointment with my breast surgeon, who was detained 5 minutes. And in that 5-minute time period, this doctor walks in and he says, hi, I'm the head of the radiology department. I understand that we didn't get all of your cancer, and so you have to go to radiation, which again, wasn't the warm and comfy way that you should be told these things.
Yeah.
But again, it is what it is. My breast surgeon finally made it in, who was a wonderful woman. She was very kind, very caring. She would sit and go through everything with me. She would draw pictures for me, wrote down all of the steps that would be going on. She was truly an amazing woman. Excuse me. So I started with chemo because they didn't get all of the breast cancer. And I started with one chemo cocktail. About 3 weeks in, my oncologist called me and she said, I've had your tumor tested 4 times and I don't believe it, but you are HER2, so I have to change your chemo cocktail. So we changed our chemo cocktail. And again, all of these appointments I had to do by myself because it was right in the heart of COVID. In January, I actually caught COVID. And I went to the hospital to get tested, and they tested me on the loading dock outside because they were afraid of bringing COVID into the hospital. So again, by myself, on this loading dock with a nurse there and the testing kits. So it's been a very hard route for me, and I've done so much of it by myself. And especially after comparing it to 25 years ago and how they were doing things, I felt a real void. And trying to get someone to talk to in the time of COVID, when everybody was having emotional problems, being trapped in their houses, was also very difficult. And the social worker gave me a couple names and phone numbers, and I would call them, and they were too busy, whatever, and it just never worked out. I don't know how I found you, Karen. I think you found me because I got an email from you. And I got 2 or 3 emails from you, and in each one of them, they were very warm and caring. And you invited me to reach out to you if I needed to talk. And at that point, I needed to talk. And so I reached out to you, and you couldn't have been more gracious on the phone and warm and comforting at a time when I desperately needed it. So we chatted and found out that there are many parallels in our lives. And you felt that I would be a good candidate for your Thrivership School. At first, I was a little dubious, more from the standpoint that this was something that I had to have an expenditure for, which was a new thing for me. It was my health insurance had picked up everything else I had been going through. But somewhere along the line, someone said it may have been in Thrivership School, if you don't have to put, what's the word I want? If you don't have to put something in the game, you're not going to reap the benefit from it. So I finally figured that this was probably the best thing for me. And it has been. It has been, I know I was very dubious in the beginning. And I think I told you many times, while it's now been 2 years since I was diagnosed, and I'm completely done with all of my breast cancer treatments, I still can't say I'm a cancer survivor. But I'm getting closer.
You're getting closer. I remember us having that conversation, and I said, you may not feel like it yet, and that's okay, right? Wherever you are is okay. And I think that, talking about being dubious about coming into Thrivership School, I think that what you experienced is very, very normal. I hear, you're putting skin in the game, right?
Skin in the game, that's what I was thinking.
You're putting down money. Yeah. And I remember being on the call where we had that conversation and somebody said that, but it is an investment in you, which for many women, is very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize that, and I understand that, because I'm also a woman, and if I hadn't had to do the same for myself previously in my life and seen how much it could help me, it helps me to understand how hard that is. And as you said, we've had lots of parallels, and dealt with grief and just lots of things, which is again very common amongst the women in Thrivership School. I can't imagine how it felt for you reaching out for help, emotional help, realizing that you needed that mental and emotional help, reaching out for it, searching for it, and coming up against a brick wall every time.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Well, unfortunately, my mom has passed away, but she had always been my rock. And I needed a hug from my mom, which is, that's all I kept feeling. My husband, which I'm sure many people can relate to, he always wanted to be positive around me. And I was afraid for him that if something happened to me and I didn't make it on the other end, that he would be by himself. So, and he's a good Italian Sicilian man that, you know, wants to take care of his family. So I couldn't lean on him. And I think now when I go to appointments at the hospital, I see that they do have this whole plan and support structure now that COVID has passed. And I think had I had that, I may have had other ways to reach out to somebody, but being the lucky person that I am, that this happened right dab smack in the middle of COVID, they didn't have all of those support things on hand. I mean, God, all of the hospitals were just trying to keep their heads above water with all of the patients and everything else. So while I understand it, it was extremely hard.
Absolutely. And I hate that you went through that. I hate that you went through that. Why, you were dubious about joining Thrivership School. Why did you say yes to yourself and decide to join us inside Thrivership School?
I think I needed the camaraderie of somebody that understood, that's been through it. You know, when you're through it all and you know, your hair falls out, while other people can be sympathetic with you, until you sit there and you rub your fingers through your hair and you come out with this softball sized clump of hair, nobody understands it. You have to actually live it. And I felt comfortable with you, and I knew that you were very particular in people that you would group together. And so I felt comfortable in knowing that I would have some friendship there.
That's what is blossoming, right? I mean, we see it, just this connection and the camaraderie of the women inside this group. And I think, you know, to go back to what you were saying about your husband, right? And everybody trying to be positive around us. And we all possess this element in Thrivership School of being a positive person in general. However, with being positive, we can also be realistic of what we're actually experiencing. And it gives us that safe space to express that and not have to suck it up and keep it inside, right? Because it gets really heavy. It's a lot when we keep all of that stuff inside. I think that one of the things I was really surprised at going through breast cancer was the complexity of the emotions that come with it. You had this additional level of doing it through COVID. And I think that that's just, it's a testament to you. It really is, in your resilience.
Well, that comes from being a middle kid.
From
middle kid syndrome. And I can remember after I got married, I lived very far away from my family. And every time I would speak to my mother, with whatever trauma I was going through at the time, she would say, you know, I don't worry about you because you're strong. And I would get off the phone with her and I would scream at the telephone, I don't want to be strong. you know, and so
Right.
at least I have some friends here who feel the same way that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know exactly what you mean by saying, I don't want to be strong. I want somebody to take my hand and hold me tight and let me know that I'm going to be okay. And, and, and I just got goosebumps, but it's because I felt the same way, right? I am resilient. I am strong. I can figure stuff out. But boy, does it feel good to feel a virtual hug from somebody, to
Yeah.
feel that acknowledgement of it's okay no matter how you're feeling, no matter how you are, you just show up, right? And we show up in Thrivership School however we're feeling. And some days it might be good and some days it might not be. It doesn't matter. We just show up and be real and be there. So what do you think has changed for you so far?
My outlook is better. Originally, when I was, the very first thing I thought when I was diagnosed with breast cancer is, well, if I die, I'll be with my daughter.
Right.
So, and I was very calm about that. That didn't bother me at all. I had no other children to worry about. And, you know, I figured if I went before my husband, you know, one of us has to go first. So I was very calm about that for a couple of weeks. And then reality, I think, was really setting in that what impact it would have on people around me if I wasn't here. So going through the Thrivership has helped me. And I think I said at our last meeting that prior to that meeting and hearing some of the other people in the group sharing, but prior to that, I felt like I just had to learn how to live with cancer. But I was taught in the last school that it can come back and I need to not only live with it, but take care of myself. And so I'm starting to come out of my cocoon a little bit. As I had said, I'm working part-time. And so when I get home from work, I just sit in front of the TV and watch whatever's on and, you know, for 5 hours or whatever. And I'm now getting better, and not completely, but I've started. So you know, I think I've improved in that respect. I've improved my outlook. I'm not really yet to the point of doing as much for myself physically as I should be doing, but there's a list in my head that I'm trying to tick off that I'll get there.
Okay, and you will get there. And I want to just acknowledge what you said, right? Because this is something we talk about a lot in Thrivership School, is it's about progress, not perfection. And many of us in Thrivership School have in our life been perfectionists and had perfectionist tendencies. So even just letting go of that and celebrating the small steps and the thoughts and the awareness always come before the action.
Mm.
So because you've now started to shift this awareness, I know and I trust, you may not yet, and that's okay, but I know that what comes next. And you just keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And this is something I say in Thrivership School all the time is you're never behind, because we all hear things at different points in time. They become our light bulb moments at different points in time, right? So I'm really curious to your answer for this. What do you believe? Because I've seen such a big shift in you and in your outlook and just in this, not just waiting for cancer to come or living with cancer, but understanding that there's this place where Susan gets to live her life, right? In between there. So what do you believe is possible for you now? Or what are you starting to believe?
during my cancer treatments, which started in the middle of COVID, we were all working remotely. The one thing that I gave my husband was I gave him the responsibility of being the gatekeeper. So he would say yay or nay if somebody wanted to come over, or if we were going to go somewhere, which literally we stayed in the house for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to feel as though I can enjoy life again. We're starting to go out a little bit. We actually went to the movie theater.
I remember.
For the first time in, I couldn't even tell you how long, way before COVID. So that was kind of fun. So
and I saw you that day and you were so excited for it and you dressed up and you were like ready to have fun.
I was.
Yeah. And it was so awesome to just see that excitement that I think has been hard for you to find for a while.
Oh, very hard. And my husband's always accused me, even before all of this, that I'm the naysayer. I'm the practical one. And he's very spontaneous. He'll say, well, let's go do this. And the first thing I do is tell him all the reasons why we can't. And then if he has an argument for all of them, then I'll finally give in. And I didn't realize how much that affected him when he always looked at it as I was always just saying no, as opposed to trying to weigh all of the factors. So I just got, and we best communicate through email because he's at work all day and I work part-time and then whatever. So he sent me an email the other day that he has a meeting in Washington, D.C. on a Friday. And he said, let's both go down by train on Friday. Thursday night, you can do whatever you want on Friday while I'm at my meeting. And then we'll train back and then we'll go to upstate New York for the rest of the weekend. And I didn't come up with all of the reasons no up front. I actually said, wow, what a great surprise.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps again. I know, I'm like so excited. How did it feel to just let all of those, because so when we do this and we make this list of notes, they're red lights. They're what I call red lights. We are stopping ourselves from living our life. We're finding excuses for why we can't. And so many of us do this. It's a very common thing that I see. How does it feel to give yourself the green light? How does it feel? Does it feel lighter? Does it feel exciting?
Not yet. This is the first time I've done it. And I'm like, okay. Oh my God.
Okay. So here's the thing, right? Growth is uncomfortable. This is why saying yes to Thrivership School is uncomfortable. When we are doing something new, it's uncomfortable. That discomfort, we often recognize as fear, and it isn't. It's just growth. When we're being stretched out of our comfort zone, it can feel uncomfortable. And I think that sounds like what you might be feeling right now is just, and it's the unknown too. And I think, when we talk about trauma and PTSD, which we experience as breast cancer survivors, you've had lots of it in your life aside from that. This feeling of uncertainty. So even going away for a weekend, which has the potential to be so much fun, but it's the feeling of uncertainty can also trigger some of those old feelings. So you just acknowledge them and say, okay, I see you, I feel you, but I'm going to do it anyway.
That's right.
I love it.
Negative Nancy to go away.
I love it. It's so helpful to recognize her though. So if you're watching this and you haven't watched any of our other videos, in Thrivership School, we name that negative voice in your head, right? the one that beats you up for not doing things, the one that tells you no, the one that gives you all of those red lights. We call her Negative Nancy. She's not welcome. Like you said, we tell her to go away. And we invite in positive Pamela, who says, you know what, just go for it. You never know. It could be the best weekend ever.
Right.
Right. So, and I love that. Absolutely love that. What do you think has been the best part of Thrivership School for you?
Belonging.
Oh my God, what a word. Oh,
And having you there to kind of guide us.
thank you.
Because you can take any
You are
of
going to make me
my,
cry right now. Because I know for me, I never felt like I belonged in my life. And I think it's such a common feeling. And so for you to say that you feel like you belong, it's huge. You're tearing me
and
up.
I'm still working on that. I don't open up as much as some of the other women in the group.
And that's okay.
And I recognize that, and I know that will come in time.
And that's all part of the talk as much as you feel comfortable talking, share as much as you feel sharing. Would you say that in not, which is your comfort zone? And we always say, like, don't do more than you feel called to do. Like you have this knowing already that it will come with time. But would you say that even though you maybe don't share as much as others, that you still take away from all of the coaching calls? Do you still learn
Oh,
something? Do you?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Because I want people to understand that you don't have to be coming in and sharing everything. You do it as you feel called and comfortable to share. And that is the space that is important to me to create. So
I mean, the only time that you've made it mandatory where we had to share was when you said, give me one word on how you're feeling.
yes,
And that was it. And,
yep.
and,
Yep.
and even that was interesting to see what everybody said.
In fact, that was a question that I asked at the beginning of the call, and it led down a road that was so valuable
It
to
was.
everybody on the call, because somebody shared a certain word, and it was just like it opened up an incredible discussion, and ended up being a really valuable call for everybody on it. And I always learn from you guys too. I mean, it's, you know, it's that's the value of a group coaching. And I think that often people can, were you hesitant about going into a group versus a one-on-one? Was that something that you were hesitant about? Or you were craving that?
I needed the group.
Yeah.
I did. Even if I sat back and just observed and absorbed everything in, because I've done so much of it alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, I lived so far from my family after I got married that I really needed that.
Yeah. Yeah. An important part for you. Is there anything else that you would like to share with anybody watching that's thinking about joining Thrivership School? Is there anything else that you'd like to share with them?
I think that they would need to know that while it is a group, it's not a massive group. It's what, half a dozen people, maybe?
There's actually about 15 members, but I don't right now as we're recording this, but
Yeah, but you break it up into 2 groups, right?
well, what we do is we do our workshop call, which is a smaller group. So that is the call where we go through the curriculum, which is Karen's formula for thriving. So that is a smaller group, which gives everybody a chance to really get coaching, right? And then we have another call in the month where it's everybody, but not everybody shows up. It depends on, you know, and all the calls are recorded. So there is an intimacy, I think, in the group, because it isn't 200 people.
Exactly.
And that's why I talk to everybody, you know, so when and you'll see around this video, there'll be a button for you to press to book a call with me, to have a chat, just like Susan did, just like everybody does before they come into Thrivership School, because I want to make sure that it's the right fit for you, right? That's really important. But also, as I'm deciding if it's the right fit for you, I'm also looking, are you going to fit into an existing group? Right. And so that's something that intuitively I just know. There is
Now,
no checklist.
when you say an existing group,
Yeah.
when I started, everybody started on the same day for the workshops, right? So it's not like I came in after everybody else had made their friendships.
No, you came into, we had just set up 2 different cohorts, 2 different groups. So we
Right.
have daring doers and we have the empowered ensemble. They go kind of, the curriculum is staggered for
Right.
how I teach it in those workshop classes. The Saturday call is everybody all together, so
Correct.
that you've got an opportunity for a smaller, more intimate group, so that you can get more one-on-one, you know, coaching in there, and then a bigger group where you also have the value of other people sharing and learning. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Right.
You do get, but as somebody new coming in, you're going to be going into an existing group that's either the empowered ensemble or the daring doers. But you will come in with a group of people who you already know. You've already met, because we always do a kickoff call, like an introductory call for new people coming in, so that you get to know the group of women who are joining at the same time as you. So I hope that's not confusing. But if you're watching this, I don't want you to overthink it. If you're thinking that, if you're relating to what Susan's saying, if you're thinking that Thrivership School, if you've got like a little inkling that I might be the right coach for you, Susan, would you say that you just had a feeling? You just had a feeling that this was the right thing for you? Did you have like
After I
a
spoke
gut?
with you,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, when I had that meeting with you, at the beginning of the meeting, I had said to myself, I'm probably not going to do this. And then after we were talking, I thought, oh my God, this is really what I need.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the
Amazing.
other thing people should know is you do offer one-on-ones if somebody needs to have that as well. So, and those are really good because you're never judgmental. You find a way to look at the positive piece, even if it's a tiny piece, in everything that's going on. So, you know, kudos to you for that. That's very good. And anybody coming in new probably would appreciate that as well.
Thank you. And those one-on-ones are actually a bonus when you sign up for the entire year. You've got 2 options. You can either sign up for 6 months or for the year. When you sign up for the year and you pay in full, then you do get those one-on-one bonus, those one-on-one sessions. And I agree with you. If you really want to get the most out of Thrivership School, having the option for those one-on-ones when either you're just having a tricky time in life, or there's something specific going on, or there's maybe one of the pieces that we're talking about that you're having a hard time wrapping your head around. Doesn't matter why you use them, but it's, like you said, Susan, valuable to have that extra ability to dive deeper.
Yes.
In a one-on-one, more personal container. And that's why I offer it, because I know that sometimes all of us, right? We all go, I have a therapist, you know, I mean, I have a mentor and a coach. Like, I believe that we all need people to lean on, and
Absolutely.
finding the right people. That's something that you just know in your gut. You just know. And so if you've got that little feeling, then book a call. So,
And
Susan,
I did 2 of mine before I started with the group. And if you remember, I cried the whole way through them, but for 2 hours, you know, an hour the first time, an hour the second time. Now I can at least talk and not cry, which is a big thing for me.
It is a big thing. It is a big thing. And that depends on when somebody signs up. It depends. We're starting, our groups start a couple of months apart. And so if you're signing up and you've got some time, it's a great space like we did to use those one-on-ones while you're waiting, because then we're getting you going, even
Right.
though the group may not have started yet. So it all depends on timing a little bit. But I do offer that as an option, and I do remember those calls, and I think but I'm glad that we were able to have that space, Susan, right beforehand, because
I was in a dark spot.
you were in a dark, as many people are when they're coming in. But there was, like you said, going through this whole thing without support, emotional and mental support, even if we've got an amazing husband or people around us, there's still stuff. And I know that it was tough for you when we got started, and I've seen such a shift.
Good.
I've seen such a shift. So please be proud of yourself. And there's a lightness in your energy, in how you're showing up, and an openness now to possibility.
Yes.
And you weren't feeling that when we were first
Oh,
talking.
not in the beginning. No.
No, no. And so it's such a big shift in what, 6 months? We're 6 months in, maybe not even that, 5.
Not quite that. No.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you
So
and I may have started early, but the daring doers didn't start 6 months ago.
yeah. And so look at that shift in really a very short period of time. May not feel like it when we're in it, but it's actually a short period of time. So Susan, I want to thank you so much for being you, for sharing your story, for being real. And I am so, so happy that you are with us in Thrivership School, that I get to go on this journey with you and support you and guide you and let you see. I mean, that sense of belonging, boy, you got me there, girl. Let me tell you, that's such a big thing to me.
It's a big one.
Yeah, you're in the right spot. And I'm so glad
I
that you
feel like
are.
so I'm happy. So thank you.
Good. No, thank you. Thank you so much. And if you're watching and you want to sit down and have a chat with me to see if Thrivership School is for you, there's a button around where you're watching this video somewhere that says book a free call with me. There's no obligation ever. But you'll get an idea as to whether or not it's the right thing for you.
And you don't do a heavy sales push on it. Just so I want to let people know that if you do the free call, she just wants to get to know you. So take advantage of it.
Exactly. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. No, I'm not a salesperson. I'm your coach. I'm here to help you transform your life and let you know that there is life after breast cancer. We don't just have to exist. And yeah, it's like I said, I'm not a salesperson. This is if it's a good fit, an invitation to join. An invitation means that you get to say no if it's not the right thing, and that's perfectly fine. Right? Perfectly fine. So, okay, thank you so much for watching, and click the button. Let's have a virtual cup of tea in a chat, right? Thank you for watching. Hope to see your name on my calendar real soon. And thank you, Susan, again.
Thank you. You have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.